Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Wealth Building Agent. I'm your host, Coach Dustin, and of course, we are in for a treat. I have someone else in my backyard that we're going to interview today, Sandra Fernandez out of the St. Louis market. So, Sandra, welcome. How are you?
Hi, thanks, Dustin. I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, like we just kind of started before I hit record, the whole point of this interview and this podcast and why we're doing this and kind of starting this movement is because I believe more agents need to start investing in real estate. As an agent, we're on the front line. So I would like to start with just your story, kind of what you do and how did you get to this point in your investing in your real estate career?
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you. I love helping people too. So I have a 25-year history in healthcare and food service. So I was a dietitian and I wore a hairnet for 25 years working in hospital kitchens. So I was kind of an unlikely investor and agent, but got into rental properties and landlording after my divorce and realized I really did like it. And I was tired of the corporate gig and working long hours in hospital food service. Jumped into real estate, began wholesaling and then rehabbing and decided to get my license and just kind of went from there. And I still do that today.
So you're an active agent and an active investor still.
Correct.
Awesome. I love that. So when you made that jump into rentals, how, remember how far ago that was? How did that jump work? I mean, you buy traditionally? How did you navigate that work?
Yeah, I was still working my corporate job and got a divorce and I had bought a townhouse. And when I decided to move on and move in with my boyfriend, who now we're married, I was well, I shouldn't say underwater. The townhouse was worth less than I paid for it because I bought it in 2009 and we know what was happening in real estate then. So it was worth less than I had paid for it. I wasn't upside down on my mortgage or going bankrupt or anything. I just didn't feel like losing money. So I started talking to people and thought, well, I can rent this thing out. But I'd never done that. I knew nothing about that. I'd built several homes I'd lived in, but I'd never done rentals. I rented in college. So just kind of learned organically through people I knew and did a little bit of research and investigation, just kind of jumped in. And it's easy when you start with a house you've already lived in because you know the house and the property and how things should work and it's in good shape and whatnot. So I was able to keep the mortgage on it because I'd lived there more than a year. So that's one thing I warn people, don't commit mortgage fraud and lie to the mortgage company and tell them it's going to be your personal residence when it's not.
Yes.
So I did not have that hurdle to deal with. So I didn't have to finance it. I was already paying on it. But you have to do your research on your rent rates and make sure that your rent's going to more than cover your mortgage. And it was a townhouse. There was an HOA on it. And the rent, luckily, was good in that area. And so I figured out I was able to cash flow like $500 a month on this thing, which is, yeah. So that became my goal. I thought if I can do this once, I can do this again. So that's kind of always been my goal. Don't always make it with my rentals and when I'm helping other people, but the longer you own them, the better. Rents go up and your mortgage usually doesn't. Taxes and insurance go up, but it's still. So I figured out quickly rentals are a pretty cool gig. Then just started from there. Since I still had a corporate job at the time, I could qualify for traditional mortgages, even though it wasn't my primary residence. At the time, you could get up to Fannie and Freddie let you get, I think, 10 that were
And
not your primary residence.
yep.
I bought 3 and then ran out of money because I was still having to put down payments down. So I'd save up some money and then buy another one, save up money. Then I ran out of money. So that's when I started wholesaling. I had some friends that were doing that and coaching that. And I'm like, okay, I need more money legally. What can I do? Yeah. So started learning how to wholesale and then I could find the deals myself. I could find the properties off market. And
Yes.
I think you even bought one from me a few years ago over
Did.
off of,
ATM's in court.
yeah, that was a good one. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I would have kept that one, but you were a good buyer and made me a good offer. And so I love when it works for everybody. We both were able to make money
Absolutely.
on it. And yeah. So that's how I got started. But now I do more rehabbing and I got my license because I thought, if I'm going to be selling these places, nobody wants to pay commission. I don't want to pay commission either. So I'm like, well, I can be my own agent, but that gave me access to the MLS and really I tell a lot of other agents, and you probably do too with what you're doing. Investors can be your best client. I mean, we're repeat business. We're not emotional about the property. We generally have funding, it's really good repeat business. And I encourage agents, think about investing in real estate. I mean, you're the expert. So figure out how to finance it and, I don't like the stock market myself. I avoid that, but I love real estate.
I can't see a stock. I can see all my houses.
I know, right.
That's
Right.
yeah. So I love that. So you kind of went. I'm going to say backwards. Started as an investor, then got your license.
Yep. Yep.
But I think the myths that I hear anytime that we coach and we work with people are the same. No, if you started as an agent or if you didn't start as the agent. I would love to hear your opinion on these myths. So the three myths that we always run into are: one, of course, there is no money. I can't afford this. Two, there's just no deals. Everything costs so expensive. And three, contractors will only screw you over. There's no good contractors and you can't get any good help. So, what is your opinion on those myths? Because that's what I have to overcome every single time, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, there's some truth to all of those. Those things can all definitely happen.
Yeah.
But if you're an educated investor and you go into it with research and working with people you trust, you can definitely overcome all of those. And it's an ongoing challenge. I mean, I'm looking for more contractors all the time because they do come and go, or they get booked, and and now I need another one. I've got two electricians, but they're not available now. How do I find another one? So those are ongoing things, and you need to protect yourself because you can lose money that way. And I'm working with an investor now that just lost money on a deal. 1 out of 6 for the year. Didn't kill him, but yeah, he hired, the cheapest contractor, which turned out to not be a good deal. And looking back, he's like, if I would have gone with the guys that I thought were the most expensive, I would have finished on time, on target, on budget, and made $40,000. He lost by going with the cheap guys. So it does not. Yeah. But you know what? That was a good lesson.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lesson he will never repeat. It will never happen again. So it was an expensive lesson, but yeah. So there are deals out there. You have to look, and it is finding needles in the haystack, but they're there. I mean, there's always going to be people that are getting married, getting divorced, having babies, getting job transfers, deaths in the family. Those things are always going to happen regardless of what the real estate market is doing.
Yes.
But I think the best way and the best deals I've gotten are working either direct with a seller or with a good wholesaler that you trust. Although I have found deals on the MLS, even before I was an agent, there are some there. Not a lot in this market, but there's still some there. There's motivated sellers. There's agents that have pocket deals that three of well, really 4 of my 5 rehabs last year were from other agents. So I tell them, some agents really only want to work with the beautiful properties, that can sell quick. But, their client's grandma died. Now what do we do with that house? Oh, and it's not retail ready at all. So I work with other agents and I network with them and tell them, call me with those deals. I will pay your commission because frankly, as agents, that's what we want, right? We want to get paid. We want our commission. So
Absolutely.
I will pay them a commission if I close on the deal, and then they don't have to do anything. And we're the easiest clients to work with because I can do all my own paperwork. I know the process. I'm not going to dicker over stuff. It's really, really easy. So work with agents, and there are deals on the MLS. Half my rental properties I bought off the MLS over time.
Nice.
So as long as the numbers work, it really, really shouldn't matter what you pay for it if your numbers work. If you know what your formula is, you know what your cash flow goal is, you know what your mortgage rate is, and you work backwards with what the rents are in that area. If your numbers work, who cares what you pay for it? Over time, I've paid 2 of my rentals. I paid a local wholesaler here in the St. Louis area. He made $20,000 on one and $25,000 on another, and that's a lot. But you know what? Those numbers worked for me. And one of them, I sold it a few years later, really only 3 years later, and I made $50,000 on it and had it rented for 3 years and was making cash flow. So, it was a great deal for me.
Yeah. No, I
So,
agree. My first rental, gentleman, we both know, $35,000 on the wholesale deal, and
yeah,
that's what made me start. Well, what is this wholesaling thing that I don't know anything about? Because now I'm interested in it, and I still have that house. I still cash flow great, and it's actually the same renter. So we're talking like 7 years now.
super easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people get greedier. They think that's too much. Well, if it's a deal, I look at it like it's a deal I didn't have. And great, he's going to make money. So I hope he brings me more deals because he knows I'm going to pay.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
held up my end of the bargain. It worked for me. It was a great property. So why not? I mean, not every wholesale fee is that high. So for people that are listening or don't know what wholesaling is, usually it's $5,000, $10,000, but they can be higher depending on the price of the property and but I I tell people, don't focus on that. Focus on your goals, your numbers, what you want. Does it serve your purposes?
And something I want to get into, because you did obviously do so much wholesaling, is that the whole point of wholesaling, and that can be a whole nother episode, but is obviously finding deals, off-market deals where you can wholesale it to another buyer or do what you want with it, but you're working directly with the seller. And this is something that I think that agents are missing, this skill set. The majority of agents, right, that are just agents, if you will, they want to find listings. Well, you can't have a listing without a seller, right? So if you can master the art of finding a seller that wants to sell a house, whether it's for top dollar or if it's I can buy it as is and I can wholesale it or rehab it. So talk a little bit about that skill set, because I believe that is the number one skill set for any agent to have, as well as any investor. Find motivated sellers.
Yeah. That really is the trick, isn't it? I think there's lots of ways to do it, and you can read all kinds of books and watch YouTube University forever. I mean, there's probably 200 different ways, but I think it starts with, relationships in your personal sphere. That's the easiest place to start. But those are people that know you and trust you. And I tell people, whether they're a new agent, a new wholesaler, tell everybody what you're doing. Just put it out there, because everybody knows somebody that at some point in their life, maybe not today, that has a house that's a dog, or that they inherited and they don't want, or even a rental property they're tired of. I mean, landlords retire and get burned out too and want to sell properties. So why not network with them? But for me, networking and my personal sphere of influence has been the best the last couple of years. Years ago, probably when I first met you, postcards were it. I mean, I got all my deals on postcards. It was expensive, but I was getting my deals that way. And for me, since COVID, my results tapered off and it's expensive. So I'd rather put those dollars other places. Networking, direct marketing, not, the postcard, shotgun method. Probates are another good lead. They're free. They're right there. At least in the state of Missouri, they're on CaseNet. So I'm sure each state has their own process, but you can buy those leads. I prefer to glean those myself because I have bought leads before, and I always wonder how fresh they are, because you're going to get some that have made me wonder, how old is this list and how many people have they sold it to,
Yeah, percent.
So at least with probates, maybe that's true of, code violations or things that are a little more recent, but yeah. So for me, that's it. And networking with agents, honestly. I mean, I told you 4 out of my 5 deals last year, rehabs, were from other agents. They called me, hey, I've got a house I think you might be interested in, like it's really not market ready at all. I mean, one was so bad it should have been condemned, not because it was falling down, but open wires everywhere, walking on bare floors. The woman's husband had gotten on drugs and went to prison, and he'd started all these renovation projects in the house. So like the house has been disassembled and she's living in it like that, and didn't have the money to fix it. But anyway, long story, but those things are out there. So I think if you network and let your people know, and even putting it on Facebook, everybody's on Facebook, and at some point people are going to either have the situation themselves or know someone in that situation. And if they know and they trust you, you'll get referrals that way.
Couldn't agree more with all that. So let's talk about what your new project is that you just got done with, that I just heard about. But now Sandra is not only an investor, not only an agent, but also an author. So that's cool. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those goals I'd had. Here's my book, Rental Wealth. It started as an ebook because when I started investing, once I figured out and I cracked the code to rentals, which is not hard, and I had a good process that was working. Other people were asking me, teach me what you do. Will you teach me? Can I learn from you? And so I put together some classes that were never really that successful. I mean, I was not one of those people looking to fill a room and motivate 500 people at a time. I was really just trying to help people. So I ended up writing an ebook just to put some information together that was available, but I'd always wanted to publish it. So it's basically my rental education class, like teaching beginning investors how to invest in rental properties, an ebook form, and then we polished it up a little bit and finally published it. And it's not a long book. I think it's 65 pages. So it's really like a handbook, but it's all you need to get started. Teaches you how to find the property, different ways you can fund it. We talk about management, your lease. Rentals is not hard. I tell people there's a few secrets, and they're in my book. I mean, everything's there. If you look at it like a management project, and my former career was in management. I managed food service employees for several hospitals. So you look at it like you're hiring employees, so that's your tenant, and you're managing the process. You have policies and procedures. You're going to have inspections. You're going to have contractors, but really that's it. And it's just so key to manage the people and the process the right way and stick to it. You can't be lenient and, oh, I'll help you out this month, because then your tenants are going to start taking advantage of you. It's just human nature. Well, you let me pay late last month. Can I pay late next month? And then can I pay on week 2? It just, you got to stick to the process, because the bank doesn't let you. Dustin can't call his mortgage company and say, can I just pay a week late this month? It does not work that way. And so you have to approach it. This is a business, and, just kind of like draw the line in the sand. That's your lease, and stick to it, because there will come a time when you have to evict someone. And if your process is tight, you will win the eviction. I mean, that's a court case, and you have to protect yourself. And really, it's in the tenant's best interest to have a good lease. And if we have time, I can tell you a quick story about that.
Sure, of course.
Okay. I bought a house to rehab here in St. Louis a couple of years ago, and it was tenant occupied, which I knew. And I had met the tenants. They were very nice. And they assumed they had to move out because it was being sold, which is not the case in the state of Missouri. The lease supersedes a sale, which you know. But they did want to go ahead and move on. And so I had told them I'll work with them and give them a month or 2 or 3 to get out, not forever. And I told them we can sign a lease, because a lease is a legal contract. It's a legal document, and it gives all parties protections in the lease. All the rules are right there. And like what the rent is and the day it's due and what the procedures are for moving out and how you handle repairs and all kinds of stuff that protect the tenant as well. Well, they gave my lease to their attorney, who kicked it back. He didn't like this or that or the other. And my attorney wrote the lease. Do not download a lease online, by the way. Or if you do, have an attorney vet it and get it. You need a good attorney in your pocket, because you're going to need backup every once in a while.
Absolutely.
So their attorney kicked it back, and I said, and it boiled down to something so silly. It was, what if someone gets hurt on the sidewalk out front and it's easement? Like, who covers the liability on that? I'm like, what are you? So odd. Anyway, so they were going back and forth about that. Well, in the meantime, I did their initial walkthrough, because I wanted to document the condition of the property, which is a very important part of the process. And they said, well, the outlets in the garage aren't working well. And so I checked it. I'm like, yeah, they're not really working well. I'll call my electrician. Electrician comes out. Long story short, the wiring in the house was fried. All the neutrals were fried. The house was a huge fire hazard they were living in. He said probably somebody, you could tell this guy was a car guy. He probably ran a welder or something in the garage that just overloaded the system. And he opened I look at an electrical panel when I buy a house, but I don't take it apart. So you probably should sometimes. As soon as he opened it, you could see the wires fried in the electrical box. And I was like, oh my God, this is bad. So they didn't want to move out. Well, they hadn't signed the lease. And I'd technically given them 30 days notice when I bought the house. So they were already 3 weeks into their 30-day notice, which in the state of Missouri, a verbal notice is a binding contract. So I didn't want to kick these people out, but I didn't want them to get hurt living in this house either. So I contacted my attorney, and we were going to go to the city and have the city condemn the house, because they would not leave, and they didn't have a lease. So they had no protection. So we ended up getting it worked out. They moved out a couple weeks later, once they realized we were going to condemn the house. I mean, and I know that sounds mean, but I didn't want it to burn down around them. So that's a perfect case in point, where if they would have had a lease in place, they would have had protection. I would have had to put them up somewhere or give them something financial, refund their rent or something. But they had no protection, and they'd already received 3 out of the 4 weeks notice. So anyway, those are the kinds of things I teach people, and the kind of stuff I talk about in the book. So some people look at the landlords and investors as the bad guys, and we're not. We really are helping people.
Great. So to kind of wrap things up, what would you tell an agent that doesn't invest, maybe wants to get into it, or hasn't even thought about it? What would you have that conversation with?
Well, I would ask them if they're looking at their retirement, or if they have any long-term investments, and what their goals are. It's probably easier than they think. A lot of people think, oh, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to, go unclog people's toilets, or I don't want to deal with rehabbing. If you do the process right, you don't have to do that yourself. It's about having a process and the teams and the tools in place. An agent already has access to the MLS. They know how to work with inspectors. They should know, a good agent's going to know how to walk a property and identify glaring problems with the property. I'm not a home inspector, neither are they, but they know kind of the things to look for. And then use the MLS as a tool to find motivated sellers, maybe things that have been on the market for a long time, or their own pocket listings, or do their own networking. And then they've got the resources. They know home inspectors. They know probably plenty of repair people. They just need help with a lease probably, and maybe some training on how to manage the lease and the tenant, which lots of us here in town do. I do, you do. There's, they can read books. They can, there's lots of ways to get that information. So I think they've got over half the tools in their tool belt already. And when you look at how home appreciation prices, especially agents that have been in more than 5 or 10 years, and since COVID, look what home prices have done. So if the price of a property is going to appreciate and you can hold the rent steady or, just increase it with inflation, you're going to have a huge spread over time. So, I mean, some of the ones that we've held for 7 years now, we're getting $1,000 a month cash flow just because of inflation. And we're not price gouging people. We go with market rents. But when you buy a property and your house payment stays the same for years, but everything else goes up, you're getting that spread. So I think they've got the information, most of it, and they just don't know what to do with it. So podcasts like this, and there's resources that can help them get across that finish line.
That's perfect. I love that. You have 50% of the tools.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge head start. So awesome. Well, this was great. Again, thank you. I knew people were going to get benefit from talking to you. So where can they find your book if they're wanting to get your book?
It's on Amazon and Kindle. It's called Rental Wealth, and it's only $9, or you can download the ebook version for $5.99. So I hope it helps. Yeah.
Put that in the show notes. And Sandra, thank you so much. It's so good to catch up. And
You too, Dustin.
thank
All
you so
right.
much.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.